And are you refreshed? Yes. Good. Now what? Wait. Stand up. You are the one.
Thank you. This manifesting really works. So now we are all everlasting, never-ending, pure positive energy, ever growing, ever evolving, going from less to more. My question is, where did that thought come from?
Well, if we could find it, we wouldn't. In other words, because we were just talking about looking back at genetics not being of any value, and trying to find the original thought really is a sort of exercise in futility as well.
Okay. All right.
Don't you agree? In other words, here you are all expanded, so we understand it's as a question. If we're thinkers, then who thought the first thought? But when you realize that every particle of the universe is wanted and unwanted, in other words, that duality or that contrast exists in all things. And so there was never the first, there was always the two positions playing off of one another and creating more. And so we've all been looking in the direction of the vortex for so long that to try to find the beginning of it is not a very satisfying thing. And we know the answer to this question is not very satisfying either.
Correct. All right, then let's just turf that.
Because what humans want, they want to say, well, I just mean in the same way that I was just born here, and I get how I was birthed of my parents, and I accept that there was an energy that I came forth from. So the first thought that we're thinking, did it come from another planet? Did it come from another universe? And we say, that just goes on and on and on and on and on, doesn't it? In other words, consciousness has been in the state of evolution for a very long period of time. And as you go with the flow of where it's evolving to, it is our promise to you, it will be infinitely satisfying. And if you go back and try to find the origin of anything, you're moving in the wrong direction.
Okay. All right. I'll take you back. Then this is a personal question now. In February, I got your meditation CDs, and I enjoy them very much, such so that I've listened to them twice a day, in the mornings and the evenings. And I've quite liked the health one. I mean, I read the book and I did all of them, and I kind of got with the health one. I really enjoyed that one, and I presume one of the reasons was because I didn't need anything. I was healthy. Had no physical manifestations of disease. And I did this for about 4 weeks, and then I managed to get a serious back injury, which nearly prevented me to come to this trip. And I'm not worried about listening to the other ones.
Better not. Poverty's on the way.
I kind of get that there's a buffer that well, did I release resistance to get sick? I know that maybe was it put into the vote? Was it previous? I mean, why would it come up after I haven't been sick for years. I haven't had an injury like this before. I'm going to regular energy cleanups. I was totally thrown by the fact that I got a serious back injury after listening 4 weeks to your health CD.
Sometimes it falls into the category of, it's that subject that we were talking about earlier, where everything is really two subjects. And often you don't know where your level of resistance really is. And so when you start with the premise that things are always working out for you, in other words, that's an important premise to begin with. you could extrapolate from this and try to go back to the origin of it after the fact. And it might be sort of satisfying to say, well, maybe I was on my way to that, and this helped me in some sort of alignment, so it helped me to prepare for that. But we are really not wanting you to try to justify anything from where you are. Instead, we would say, so here you have an opportunity to come in perfect alignment, and isn't it nice that you're revved up and ready to hear it, and undoubtedly going to hear it on deeper levels now than you would have heard it before. In other words, there are all kinds of things that are happening to you at all kinds of levels of your being. There are people who don't want to be deliberate about creation at all, who would say something like, well, I don't want to want anything, because in my awareness that I now want it, there's a greater potential that I will feel the lack of not having it. In other words, I didn't like those grapes anyway, they were sour. And there's a little bit of that that's mixed into this. Sort of, it's what we were talking about earlier when we said that sometimes people are not really wanting to get too deliberate because they're not wanting to shine a spotlight on anything. But we want to say to you that the best way of approaching anything is to acknowledge that I am where I am. And rather than spending so much time trying to figure out how you got there, what did I do wrong, is the cause of this that I was listening to a recording that it was to help me to become more clear and robust in my well-being? Highly unlikely. Was there resistance within me that I didn't know was there that resulted in this? Absolutely. Will this meditation CD assist me in releasing the resistance? Absolutely. Will it help me to come into full recovery from where I am now? Certainly. So if you just stand where you are and are looking toward the clear recovery or the clear improvement that is inspired from where you stand, that will always serve you well.
I still don't quite get it. I hear what you say. So I got sick because I wanted more clarity about being well.
Well, do you have to assign a reason to something that you're living? And someone said earlier, well, I think the lesson in this is, and we say there aren't any lessons, there's just creation. And don't you just get better and better and better at creation as you move along?
So the releasing of resistance and the sickness is a coincidence?
Well, releasing of resistance is not a vibrational match to sickness. The holding of resistance is a vibrational match to that. The awareness of resistance and the releasing of resistance are slightly different things and in different degrees of subtlety. But there's a more important thing. We know that it feels to you that we are evading the question. And in a sense we are, because we do not think it is the best question to be asking. Because, and we talked about it just a little bit ago, when you stand where you are and you accept the manifestation that is, and then you acknowledge that manifestations are constantly shifting based upon the attention that you're giving to your vortex, and then you set out to deliberately find a better feeling place, and you find the improvement that you're looking for, there will be a time, once you have found the alignment, that you will understand more clearly the value in learning how to do that. It's a little bit like we were speaking earlier about people who are sometimes so certain that they are not wanting to have any negative exposure or anything that they never go anywhere where anything could possibly happen. Don't get on a ship because sometimes they sink, and don't get on a ship because sometimes you get seasick, and don't get on an airplane because sometimes they crash, and don't interact with people because most of them aren't in a vortex, and don't have children because they'll make you crazy and things can happen to them. And so there are so many people that are sort of in a guarded way, not out there living life. And we think the only way to really become natural and easy about a robust, adventurous life is to get out there and have some exposure to some experience that you're able to bring back into alignment. It's sort of like riding the bicycle. When you fall off, you get back onto it. Rather than trying to psychoanalyze what happened. Who created a bicycle that was so unstable that I would fall off of it? And shouldn't it have been better engineered? And shouldn't my parents have guided me in a more effective way? And I really shouldn't have read that bicycle manual on how to get the most out of riding the bicycle, because if I hadn't read that manual, I probably wouldn't have fallen off on it. And we say, to stand where you are and try to extrapolate from anything how you got here when where you are is not a place you want to be is completely counterproductive. But to take the bounce of it, to accept that, well, I know what I don't want, this is what I do want, and now to align with the things that you're hearing on that recording, to find the depths and breadths of it. Once you come into alignment and the manifestation occurs, then we can have a conversation that you will get. Until then, it just feels like words, because words do not teach. It's only life experience that teaches, you see.
Get out of your head, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll try. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Good conversation.